Have you been this summer? Or this summer?
Well, I mean, summer camp started today, so it's summer.
It's summer.
Yeah, it's a lot.
You guys, big class?
Yes, it's oversold. We have wait lists for everything. It's crazy. Good and a lot.
These run at a loss? They don't do that?
No. I mean, we don't like make a profit on it, but they're not at a loss.
Yeah. Self-sustaining.
Yes, that's the idea. Because they've been part of us since the beginning, so they're not going anywhere, but they're also not.
Yeah, I'd heard there were rumblings, but.
Yeah, but
Quicker than I expected.
that's always nice, right?
I guess
When
they're-
That program is good. Yep.
how's the center
Facility is
done
not
for
included.
visitations and stuff?
It's actually been really good this year.
I don't think they own them. I looked at these and it looks like everything they own is included, and that's why they're
Stations are up.
Are people, there's stuff to
looks like they're
purchase there?
holding out
We just have a very small little gift shop, but like
form of dairy there.
now jeans and t-shirts and our children's book and trail guides
I don't know
and
about
stuff like that.
this.
So people have been purchasing more this year than normal, which I don't know what's causing it, but
Guess
I'm not
these are-
questioning.
I need to drop in.
All right.
I didn't know, that was a guess.
Grandkids were in town, I should have taken them up this weekend.
Oh, yeah. Hope to get some,
That might be,
have like a rotating exhibit space. We're hoping to get something new in there this year. Hopefully about dark skies if it goes the way we're planning it to. So be new stuff to see.
Good.
You ready, Stephen?
I am.
Guess I have to officially do this. Okay, so we'll call our June 3rd meeting of COSAC in order. And any edits or changes to the agenda? Stephen?
I don't have any.
Okay, has everybody had a chance to review the minutes? Any comments or questions, suggestions on minutes?
on minutes in general, I talked to Stephen about this, but I started to read through and look at my comments in that, and it's a paraphrase of my comments, and they're probably kind of fairly rendered, but it's not exactly what I said. And I did check Robert's rules on minutes. They recommend not recording conversations, but just recording actions.
Yes.
So we had these agenda items, they passed or they didn't pass.
Yeah.
And we have the video and recordings of the actual conversations. I just wonder if we couldn't dispense with the paraphrase of the conversations in the minutes, because it's not strictly accurate and it's not required by our rules, and that's a suggestion. I don't want to, be the only one that feels that way, but if I wanted to suggest that.
I'm in favor of that.
So I brought up state code so we could talk about that. This is essentially what state code states. For written minutes of an open meeting shall include date, time, and place of the meeting, name of members present and absent, the substance of all matters proposed, discussed, or decided by the public body, which may include a summary of comments made by members of the public body, a record by individual members of each vote taken by the public body, the name of each person who is not a member of the public body after being recognized by the president. That part won't really apply to that. And the substance in brief of the testimony or comments provided by public under the section, and any other information that is recorded to record of proceedings of the meeting that any member requests to be entered into the minutes of record. So I think the big issue that we have is just item number 3 is the substance of all matters proposed, discussed, or decided by the public body, which may include a summary comments made by members of the public body.
Okay. Well, I see the word may there.
Yeah,
May include a summary of the comments.
Well, B says that this requirement is met if there is a link to the recording. And I think that's what Claire was saying, that since there is a recording, could we take it out?
Yeah.
We do make those available, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it's being recorded and live on YouTube right now, and then the audio I always upload to the Utah Public Notice Meeting website after the fact.
Okay.
So all that's available.
I think where we have that, I don't see value in recording for history comments that people make. The votes kind of tell the story of what happened. If somebody wants to delve into it, there's the recording. So it's a suggestion.
Yeah, I don't have strong feelings on it. Simpler is better, usually, so that there isn't any confusion or misinterpretation.
I would think if we changed it, it would be going forward, is not to delve into
Yeah,
any current minutes. They're fine.
And so for Megan's benefit, we're just saying exclude some of the discussion unless there are important points being made.
Any motion, there should be a record of exact wording of any motion made, a record of a second if it's necessary, a recording of the votes, a recording that there was a public hearing, maybe a recording of the individuals.
yeah, and I think that link to that's very important if that's what we're gonna do.
Yeah.
So people can get to, that would be, if someone was to grab something from that, they'd be grabbing exact verbiage rather than paraphrasing.
Yeah. Yeah. And I have no issue with the paraphrase. It's, as far as I can see, it's fine, but it is extra work and it seems unnecessary.
Okay. Okay, I don't know we need to take action necessarily on it. It's just a recommendation of how we document our minutes going forward, right? Or would you prefer that we?
Well, one way to do it would be to have the more precise or concise minutes that we actually approve. And if the county would like to have a paraphrase of the conversation, that's fine. That could perhaps be a supplement. But for the minutes themselves, for the record, it's probably better to not rely on a paraphrase when we have the actual recording.
Is that a process you can implement, Stephen?
Yeah.
Staff, or
Megan, do you have any?
how do you feel?
I do what you guys would ask me to do. I mean, this is the way I've done it for work planning and services for 16 years. So, but
Yeah,
my job is at your guys' discretion. So.
yeah. And I want to recognize the tradition. There's probably reasons for that. I do think, though, in the formal minutes that we approve, I'd rather not have to read through and, every comment.
Much more
and
likely
think,
to,
do you catch the tone of voice, the inflection, the emphasis? And I assume so, but it's probably not something I'm going to read.
I guess the only thing I'd say is I just try to say so-and-so spoke about road access, water. So I try not to inject what's not.
And I didn't see any, and I hope you're not feeling that way. It's just, I've worked with Robert's Rules on and off for a while, and I've heard that in other groups, and that's the way they do it. But governments can be different.
So I'm perfectly fine with that. We'll just, we can just make sure we provide that link and make sure that it's really clear that it's available to watch.
Okay,
Yeah, so I don't have any issues.
yeah.
I know that, a scenario I can envision where a member of the committee might feel it's important to be recorded is, the rationale behind how they're gonna vote or something like that. So
And I think there's a provision for the member's discretion asking for something to be included in the minutes.
Yeah,
I'd be all for that.
yeah, so that's under, sorry, I just brought that over so I could read through it. Yeah, so any other information that record of the proceedings of the meeting that any member requests to be entered in the minutes or recording. So if there's a certain statement we want to include in the minutes,
I'm fine with
then
that.
a member can request that.
And there might be an issue where we'd want to say, I would like in the minutes the reason for my vote,
Yes,
and we should do that.
it puts the onus on the committee members to identify what's important
Yeah.
and what they would like to have recorded, so.
Yeah.
Okay. We don't need to take a vote on that or anything, or would you prefer? What would you?
No, not if, we could experiment with it, let's see how it goes going forward.
Okay.
I'm fine with that.
Okay. Oh, sorry. Okay, so, back to the, minutes for review. Anybody have any other comments or suggestions on the minutes that were posted? Okay, so without objection, we'll approve the agenda and the minutes, accordingly. So our next item is, first round discussion on the Cooper application. So do you want to take the lead here, Stephen?
Yeah, so we sent out a survey to all the members of the committee, and I just want to kind of go over the summary of the different results. That's all right. So we did our site visit 2 weeks ago. Many of you were able to attend, some of you weren't. We did for those that were, I did upload all the photos I took into the packet for review. Let's kind of go through and summarize the different properties. So there are two distinct areas as part of this application. One area contains 2 parcels, that is in Wellsville. The other one is in the Mount Sterling area. So the first, I want to go over the scoring that took place for the Wellsville property. So this is the average scores for the Wellsville property for under each category. So as you can see, protect scenic vistas ranked the highest, and then preserve open lands near Valley Gateways was a close second to the scores. And then, which seems pretty clear, those are right next to Highway 89, 91, right at Wellsville, right as you're coming into the valley. So the next few, and maintains agriculture was clearly ranked pretty highly as well. However, the following were a little bit less, obviously. Maintains waterways, maintains wildlife habitat, and allow public access. And distinguishing factors were all ranked a little bit lower. So our total average score was 54.6, and this was the different scores by the committee members who participated. And so you can see there is a little bit of a difference between scoring between individuals. So yeah.
Did you get mine? I was late sending it in.
Yes, I did get
Okay.
yours. Yours is included in that.
And then my score would be higher, but I did not complete the public access because I said I don't know what the public access plan is. So I left that 0 for now.
Okay.
So that might reflect that.
Yeah, that's helpful to know. But I scored it really low on that item, thinking there appeared to be some opportunity there, at least willingness by the landowner, but it wasn't clear what that meant, so.
Yeah.
Properties like that could be potentially interesting as if UDOT was as part of their connectivity plan.
Yep.
But although I'm not sure what else is along that strip, so.
Yeah. Then we talked about in the Mount Sterling property about, I don't know which one we're on here,
Yeah, so this is the Wellsville property.
possibility of trail along the crest, but it was vague, so I don't know.
Yeah. So there were 2 comments that were provided in the scoring as need to see public access plan to score that category, and this project can be an important catalyst for farmland conservation within our primary gateway entry into the valley. So it is also just a good reminder as we're looking at total scores is the total possible is 100, but when we created the scoring chart, we didn't anticipate that it would be very rare for any property to score high in each category, essentially, because the categories are so different, because you have agricultural, waterways, wildlife habitat, public access, and the vistas and gateway.
Yeah, I don't think this is a bad score if you ask me for a property that we.
It's high in 3 categories.
Right,
And
right.
our mandate is to provide some of each category.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep. And you want to move on to the Mount Sterling property? Or do we want to talk about Wellsville a little bit longer?
Yeah.
It'd be good
What
to
do you guys-
compare them, like,
Okay.
see.
Okay, so for Mount Sterling, the average scores were, you can see, is skewed a little bit to the lower section than the higher, and then higher one. So protect scenic vistas and preserve lands near valley gateways. Those were a little bit lower in this property, likely due to the isolated nature of the property. Maintains agriculture was 7.4 out of 15. Waterways scored fairly low. There is a spring on the property, but no active waterways. There maintains wildlife habitat that scored pretty high. Even on their site visit, we saw some deer, and there's definitely elk that are on the property as well seasonally. Then allows public access was ranked 5.75, and then distinguishing factor was 8.75. I do think just when we did the visit, the property is pretty breathtaking. However, from the beauty of it, you can tell that there are some areas of it that are scored fairly high and others that scored fairly low. And so the average score was lower at 43.4, and you can see kind of the distribution here. Overall, the scores were clearly a little bit lower. None of them were as high as for the Wellsville property, and there were lower scores than on the Wellsville property as well. And then there was only one comment for this one, just needs to see public access plan to score that category.
Yeah. And I had made the comment on the other comment on the Wellsville property, and probably gave it a pretty high uniqueness value for that reason. You know, just being a sort of the first step, and hopefully more properties along that gateway coming in to consider this program. So.
I would have rated it higher on that score if it was contiguous with more land and ag land.
Yeah.
To kind of be the catalyst, the trigger.
Good point.
It might
Yeah.
get surrounded by housing or something.
That's true.
I think this is a case comparing the two where, yeah, the scores are different, one's higher and one's lower, but one's going to cost probably a lot more per acre.
Yep.
So it's bang for the buck kind of situation.
Yeah, but our bang has to have some of those aspects to it, you know? I think
The
some of
bucks
the
are
things
limited.
we want to create are gonna cost a little bit more.
Yeah.
And it goes to be able to do this small type of a deal. One, right now, we don't have a land trust that matches these type of things. So that's where I was like even if we recommended it, there needs to be a pathway. And what is our pathway towards preserving this type of a 20-acre type piece of property? So that didn't affect my scoring.
Yep.
But it affects how we project it to the council, I think.
Yep.
You don't think it fits in the wheelhouse of maybe McAllister or
Well,
the land trust?
somebody's got to hold the conservation easement and go through the process, the expense of that. And I don't know where that tipping point, those tipping points end up, but 20 acres is just, that's where, if there's an opportunity for deed restriction or something, we can almost, all that money that would go towards getting getting an appraisal and all that, instead we put that towards buying that, but I don't know where we're at on being able to evaluate that as an opportunity. But.
Yeah, I guess Mr. Cooper is here with us. He might be able to address that question. But from the county's perspective, as of right now, we don't know anybody who is available or has volunteered to hold these easements.
And is there an alternative to a conservation easement?
Yeah, so we could potentially record deed restrictions against the property, or the county itself could hold the conservation easements, or maybe even Wellsville City for the Wellsville property. Deed restrictions have some disadvantages to them. one of the biggest issues, deed restrictions are essentially CC&Rs.
Yeah.
For those of you who lived in HOAs. And it creates the legal enforcement, it makes it just a little bit more complicated, because the first thing you have to prove is that by that property owner's violation of said restriction that you are damaged by it. Which the county, I think, where if we paid for those deed restrictions to be placed, I think we'd have a pretty good case for that, but that would be the first hurdle we'd have to come over, where the conservation easement would already have somebody assigned to maintain that agricultural or that conservation responsibility.
So a city or the county having that, let's just talk about that really quick. Who owns the one out on the west side of Logan? Who holds that conservation easement?
Which one?
The one along the river?
The one next to the New Willow Lakes development?
I think so.
I
Because Logan touted it. I'm wondering if Logan holds that.
think Logan required it as part of the development.
You're talking about between 6th West and 10th West, right?
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Is
So
it between
that's-
6th and 10th, or I thought it was that side of 10th?
I think it's west of 10th.
West.
Around 10th south.
Okay,
Yeah.
different than the one I'm thinking of.
I guess, because there are a couple conservation easements. That's when you emailed me. Sorry, I got back to you about half an hour before to ask you which ones you were referring to, but I can bring up a map. But I wasn't able to do much research into either of them, because there are a couple out there.
But I mean, yes, cities and local governments can hold a
Yeah.
conservation easement. Question is, do they want to? And I think in this sort of scenario where, if there was a scenario where there's not an organization willing to step in and do that, I do think the county is a potential backstop.
Yeah.
To do that, and the county would do it with the intention of, we think there's gonna be more of this in the surrounding area, and at
Contiguous.
some point,
Yeah.
maybe that gets
Yeah.
grouped in with
Yeah.
a different program.
And the reason I'm wondering about the Logan is I can't remember the size, and maybe the size kind of matches up, and we could understand what they did there.
So I've participated in cities where we've had conservation easements. There's been a couple of them that the city purchased outright, just because they felt like it was a historic piece of property. I think like Morgan Farm in Nibley is a good example, where it's a city-owned piece of property, and then they lease it out to somebody to continually to farm it and maintain it. But in the end, the city owns it, but there wasn't necessarily a conservation easement in this case. It was just a piece of property that they wanted to buy to conserve.
No, that's interesting. Nibley owns it.
Yep.
About how big is that?
About 5 acres.
Okay.
The other pieces, or the other methods that I've seen for conservation,
And the city simply gave them an amount of money
yep, just
to put it.
yep, just bought it outright. For
Oh,
the-
they bought it outright. They own it.
They own it.
So is there a conservation easement on it then?
No, they bought it just with the intent to preserve it. In the
Okay.
future, it could be developed into park space or whatever it might
Okay.
be. But the other way that a city can do it that I've seen is through, well, there's two different methods that come right off bat. The first one is through a conservation subdivision or development type of restriction. Essentially, a property owner comes in to develop property. There's some conservation value that is associated with that property. And so the city or county could say, we will allow you to cluster all your units, or even give you a density bonus if you leave so many acres and put it under a conservation easement. And then oftentimes the city ends up holding that easement in that case, because the city essentially exchanged density and smaller lots, or maybe different housing options for this type of open space. This local government can also do what's known as our create a program of transferable
Which we don't have.
development rights. So Nibley City has a program, and the county's general plan recommends that we start one in the county, but it is, we have done very little work on it at this point.
On the one before that, is that different from just the remainder parcel that we have in the county subdivision?
Yeah, essentially. Well, there is, can be. Essentially, the remainder parcel that we currently do in the county is not an actual conservation easement or conservation piece of property.
Just
It's
on the plat.
essentially, we allowed them to cluster in their homes on smaller pieces to leave a larger piece open for agriculture. And they can amend that agricultural piece by just doing a subdivision amendment.
Yeah,
And as long as that amendment complies with our code, so let's say they had 20 acres and they divided 2 lots out of it and kept a larger piece for agricultural remainder. In the future, if all the property owners said, no, we're gonna eat up the agricultural remainder and make both lots 10 acres, they could come back and do that. And so it's not protected over the long term. It's just kind of depends on what the property owner wants to do. As long as it meets zoning, then the county will approve it.
So, I think probably the county's gotta figure out if they're interested in under certain circumstances, holding a conservation easement.
Yeah,
Cause that may be the only option.
And it could be, if we made a recommendation today, and that could be part of phase 2, so they have to come back with a more detailed plan on who will hold that easement, whether it be the county or another third-party organization.
is the landowner interested if we put one forward and not the other?
We can ask them. We can ask that question.
Are you interested if we put one property forward and not the other?
Well, the plan is, my plan is, I got that 20 acres, and then I rent the next piece next to me that's right coming in. So I'd like to get enough money to purchase that and get it in it too. So that's my plan. If I could get both of them in, I rent that another 25 acres north of where I'm at. And so my plan was to get it, if I could get it, I'd put it in the same deal as you got now. So that'd give us about 50 acres there as you come out of the valley, where there'd be nothing there. That's what my thinking is, so anyway.
Is it along the highway?
It's right along the highway too, it's just north of where I am, it borders the highway all the way down.
Mr. Cooper, let me have you go to the microphone over here so we
Okay.
have you recorded. No, that's okay.
If you could just stand right there, that'd be.
Can you point to those properties for us, Stephen?
I'm not sure exactly which ones. Are they just north of your property?
Yep, it's just north of
So
it.
these ones, I take it?
Yep, it's right there.
Okay,
I know some of the committee members are interested if you've done any outreach to other conservation organizations that may be able to help with funding, that sort of thing?
We're working on that, yep.
Okay.
We're working on the state, we filled out that and sent it in, and so we're working on that too, but like I say, I'm a farmer and I hate to see that land be put into houses, and so that's my plan, so, whatever.
Good, so I agree, Stephen, the point you made earlier as far as, having that detailed information about who potentially would hold the easement, that sort of thing, as part of the second round, we'd of course expect. And at some point, a dollar figure, right, for what the project is asking for, so. What do you think, Kendra?
Yeah, I think it would be super helpful if we knew both properties, what we're looking at cost-wise. Because if one of them really isn't that much money, why not just put them in together if it's the same landowner? But it's a big piece of information that's missing.
Yeah.
Yeah, we could make a lot of commitments that we don't quite have any dollar figures.
Yeah.
And they're not really commitments, but still, at some point,
Yeah, the risk is we're asking landowners to make some investments for this next round, and there's, of course, no guarantee that we could fund their project. Justin?
I was gonna say, does the property that you're looking at purchasing, is it adjacent to the Wellsville Dam?
We're just through the field from the Wellville Dam,
That
yep.
means that Wellsville Dam and those
Yep, it's-
properties will be connected.
It's probably about 300 yards through the field from Wellsville Dam.
so are they connected or is there something separating them?
Yeah, that's my question. Is there something separating the Wellsville Dam property and your the property you're looking to purchase?
The property I'm looking to purchase is just north of where I am. It's close to Wellsville Dam too. Yeah, it's right there by it, yep.
So then it'd be one contiguous piece.
It'd be just give me one big piece.
Yeah, there is that 200 south separating it, looks like.
Can you show us which ones we're talking about? Is that possible?
I think so. Are we talking about,
Yeah, just click on it.
I guess,
Click on, pull his parcel up and then we'll,
yeah, so this is his most northern parcel. This is the other one.
okay.
So if you're looking at just north, you have some public street dedications, it looks like, that go through this area. Probably Wellsville, you can see they're labeled, but nothing's built. But you have this piece that's just north of him. You have this piece, you have these little pieces right here. I'm assuming that you're currently leasing, right? I don't know if you can see my mouse, sorry, it's kind of small. And then there's also this piece that's right along the highway as well.
Who are you leasing from?
You what?
Who are you leasing from currently?
Morris Pitcher's his name. He lives down in Ogden. He's just had his 80th birthday, and I've run it for.
Picture properties then. Yeah.
Wow, that'd make that huge by the time you add the Wellsville Dam in.
But the dam is gonna be
Yeah, the dam's
across the road.
yeah, across the road.
Yeah, so you have
But
these,
that is a contiguous.
yeah,
would
you
be
have all these
contiguous to
properties
the
that
dam
are
property.
picture.
Okay,
Yeah, that helps to see the
yeah.
picture properties there. Do we know Wellsville's, well,
I don't know. It might be worth talking to them about this. I don't know what their plans are for these because these look like roadway dedications.
Mr. Cooper, do you know the history on the roadway dedications on that northern property?
Yeah, I lease the roadway too. The city owns, there's a roadway that goes through there, and the city owns, or I lease it too from the city.
but you're farming that piece right now.
Yep. And I think if I could purchase that, there would be no need to have the street go through there, so I could probably get the other from the city, because it just goes straight through my property. And so, yeah.
It's hard to see where that road goes to or from. Just there.
I think it's supposed to connect into 200 East and then continue up. What's that? North into 300.
Oh, it's in line with the city blocks, isn't it?
Yeah, that's what it looks like.
Yeah.
That is interesting where it's contiguous with Wellsville and the dam.
Because I've gone fishing there with scouts, and so it's a nice little area and a lot of trails around there. So if that's what you're looking for, that might be more advantageous for this property. That adds another view to it.
And even with this project, I don't think, you know, to your point, Justin, I'm not sure we were making the connection that even the
Right.
Cooper property is immediately adjacent to city property that is recreation and open space oriented. So, what are your, any questions you have for us, Mr. Cooper?
No, that, just telling you what my plans are. If I can get it approved or whatever, I'd like to get as much in this set aside as I can, because I'm a farmer and they don't make no more of it, so, anyway.
So, if we make a recommendation to the county council to approve your first round application and they do so, then there'll be a fair amount of work on your part for that second round
Okay.
application. That's where we're gonna get down to brass tacks, I guess, and that sort of thing, so.
Okay. Whatever I gotta do, I'm willing to work with you, whatever we got, you know.
Well, we appreciate your interest. It's a compelling project. It's in a location that we're very interested in. So, yeah,
Be nice if we could look at both of them together,
yeah.
the one to the north. I don't know how to do that.
I don't know either, but
I can,
It would raise the score.
I can talk to, well, whatever, that was my plan, and so, I've leased it for 20 years, and so, anyway.
Yeah.
George Poplin used to own it, and he died a few years ago, and then he bought it off of them, and so, but I've run it for a long time.
yeah.
And it just, you know, just be a nice, pretty piece of ground that, as you come down into the valley and look that side, just, there'd be nothing there but, you know.
Does your pivot water that side as well?
Yeah, my pivot goes across part of it, and then I got a wheel line that waters the rest that the pivot don't reach.
Are we worried if he's not able to do that, that it's economical to keep that piece going? Just a thought.
I mean, if the neighbor were to sell to somebody else, then the pivot
Yeah.
doesn't fit.
Right.
Without the pivot, that's a pretty good investment that makes the agricultural viable.
Yeah, and I think it makes it a nice piece too. It's from a aesthetic point of view.
green.
Yep,
Yeah,
yep.
yeah. Seems like it's somewhat dependent on the North Peaks then, to that little degree.
Is the piece,
For the
right
pivot.
where the cursor is that the one you're looking at purchasing? Or the other
All of
two?
those.
Anything with picture on it, I believe.
Okay,
Yeah, so I believe it's
all of that,
all this.
wow. And then include that with the Wellsville City Corporation.
Would it ever work to have one application for two property owners? Is that problematic?
I don't think it would necessarily be problematic. We'd have to figure out how to fund each piece in the second round, but under the first round, just for review, I think it would be fine.
Have to both be willing.
I think it becomes quite interesting in a first round to me.
Maybe this is where we should be proactive and just see. We could work it out.
We, just the COSAC, because this is our first round and a preliminary approval, you could potentially include in your recommendation to council certain conditions that you would like to see fulfilled within the second round, or something more broad, you know, something kind of broad like that to help give a little guidance for not only the council but also for the applicant as they're moving forward.
So there's a theory here that the funding that we provide goes towards that purchase.
Yeah.
And we end up with a conservation easement, and he ends up with both pieces of property.
Yeah, I would agree. It's definitely more compelling. I don't know that we need to condition it based
Yeah,
on
I
that.
wouldn't condition more
Because
it's more of a statement, like, hey,
Mr. Cooper wants to give us a fire sale price or something like that, something we couldn't possibly refuse, but I don't think it matters.
right, oh, absolutely.
When you get into phase two
It's a little different than
funding,
yeah.
then it becomes more valuable.
Yeah, and I think
sure.
it's a little different than a condition, it's a opportunity,
Yeah.
an opportunity that needs to be amended to the piece.
I think the connection, it'd be nice, Stephen, to at least take a look at Wellsville City's general plan and see
Yeah.
what their plans are for that, because I do think the staff report could be supplemented with that kind of information that this project and potentially future project would also abut city open space, assuming that's what they have that use for.
Yeah, well, that's a fair point.
And it looks like there's a walking trail that exists already, they've labeled on my phone anyway, that goes around the whole dam. The only access is on the west side. So that is a little trail that goes around it.
Yeah, so there is a trail. You can access it. There is some parking on the west side. I believe there's a trail access point on the south side too.
Yeah.
And then you see the bridge right there that connects at 600 South.
Yep.
Well, committee, what would you like to do? I would say I'm inclined to recommend the projects to the county council and use the second round to evaluate, you know, how much support for the projects individually. I mean, we can do them separately or.
I'd propose them separately. I'd propose the Wellsville piece.
I agree with that.
I think there's we would need to put a lot on the table if the Mount Sterling piece came up. I think that's a kind of a different, maybe down the road, we could look at that, but it's not as compelling.
Okay.
Right now.
Because of the lack of access,
And
visibility.
visibility and, yeah, what we're giving them. You know, I mean, if there's a similar piece in Clarkston, I mean, are we willing to do that? And
Yeah.
I think right now, I think there's a time when those properties become more valuable. As there's more development, right now, there's an urgency, I think, if we're, with visibility and what people are able to experience.
Thoughts clear?
Anyone have a gut feeling as to what that kind of forest recreation property is worth?
You know, its developability is very limited. Under our current zoning right now, they'd likely only be allowed one seasonal
40.
cabin. And probably could not do much subdivision just because, I mean, there is enough that you could subdivide, but what you'd subdivide out would not be very usable. So its developability is very limited. Like I said, there's only about 30 acres out of the 160 that could be used for any type of development, so.
The neighboring properties to the east are subdivided somewhat, maybe 2 acres or something. Did they get a rezone, do you remember?
I think those are 10 acre.
And I think they're probably 10-acre lots,
Okay,
but I'm not 100% sure.
yeah.
Assuming you're referring to the east, right?
Yeah, we saw those homes, handful of homes there.
Oh man, that's hard to read.
810.
Yeah, it's 810. Trying to look for the
5.5 acres.
5.5 right there. Yeah, so I'm assuming if we pulled up the,
We had an A5 zone, I don't know if that's still in place, I believe.
We have a RU5,
Is that what it is?
but those may have been back when you got 3 lots per parcel and then so many acres per,
Yeah.
so many units per acre after that or something like that, I remember.
It may have started A10, it may never have been FR40 in that area too.
does look like there is a subdivision. I have to bring this over to my screen so I can read it.
I think in general, I'd be inclined to do first round approval of both of them for different reasons, realizing that that's not a commitment
Yeah,
by any means, it's just,
yeah,
they're not obviously insignificant,
yeah.
and they did score
Could you rank them? You've already got your ranking scores. Say this is
Yeah, the
second
scores
place.
are the scores, right?
Yeah.
And I feel similar to Claire, and would be inclined to recommend that both go forward. I do think there are different pots of money that may be interested. You know, one's more agriculture oriented potentially, even though it is small. And the other one is maybe more wildlife habitat oriented, that sort of thing. So there could be different types of funding sources for the different projects. And so, and the other thing that's compelling to me is that, at least so far into this process that's been open for at least 2 months, maybe more, 3 months.
3 or 4 months.
Yeah. You know, this is our second project. We're gonna look at a third one, but, there's not, I definitely wanna keep my powder dry to a certain extent, you know, going forward, but, at least for now, until we have numbers or whatever, there's not a budget reason to not move them along, so.
Yeah, and I guess I'm not necessarily on a decline on the second one. I just, like, if it came up and that was the only one there, I would set it aside to see what else we had and to say, move this forward.
Yeah.
We're saying we're pro this project, and I can't say that.
Yeah.
Relative to the other, so.
That's a question, Mr. Cooper. About how many cattle can you graze on the Mount Sterling property?
There's 20 up there.
Okay,
And I'm in the process of, right now, I've been accepted to drill a well up there too. I got a government funding and they're gonna, I finished up doing all the paperwork on that a couple of weeks ago. And so they're gonna fund me a well up there too. So there'll be water up there for whatever, or whoever, or whatever goes on there.
okay.
They're gonna put a solar pump on it and everything. And so, you know, that's just another thing I got going on there too, to make it a little nicer.
Yeah. Again, viable going forward for agriculture. That property has a much lower threshold of viability. It's simply grazing property. It's, doesn't depend on being contiguous with others like maybe the 20-acre piece does.
Yeah.
Like that. So its commercial value per acre is much lower than irrigated farmland.
Yeah.
But its threshold of viability is much lower as well. It could be grazed forever, as far as that goes.
And if some surrounding properties, for example, were interested in also doing some conservation easement work up in that area, it would, I think, elevate that particular project a little bit.
And I guess my understanding, I wasn't able to attend, but I talked to Stephen about is the visibility isn't, like, we're not giving people visible open space that is part of their experience, right?
Those 10 neighbors have a great view.
Yeah, they do. And if there was public access to the property, everybody that went there would have a great view.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
That would make a big
quite-
difference.
But that bike trail up on top, you'll have a great view.
Exactly.
And if that was, but that, my understanding is that hasn't been proposed in the mix.
It hasn't been proposed, but it hasn't been dismissed offhand.
Yeah, they're not necessarily opposed to it.
Yeah.
Do we know if the church property owners or holdings down there, are those actively used? Is there, you know, are there public campers that would be able to see this property, or?
I'm not sure what the, let's see. Yeah, it's the church property. I'm not sure what they use this piece for.
Probably
Farming.
big ranching out.
Yeah, I think they just use it for farming. Most of the camping takes place right here. You
Okay,
see like this little flat spot. They may wander a little bit into this piece, but as you can see, there's the only access really is right to this property. That is you know, it's relatively close, but also kind of around the corner.
Okay.
Kendra, what are your thoughts?
I just feel like there's some missing information to be able to say yes or no, and I agree with maybe putting it past this level and then seeing if we can get the additional information before we dismiss it outright. I think it does have value, but I mean, that's personal to me. I ride my bike out there a lot. I like that it's beautiful and not full of houses and traffic and people trying to kill me, so, yeah.
This one, or it'd be helpful to use round one to pin down the public access component? Is it conditional on that, perhaps? Trails or something?
I think that's,
Not make a difference?
I guess if, it would make sense to add that as a condition, perhaps? That some sort of public access be,
In order to get it to score, I don't know. I'm just trying to,
no, as a condition for round two.
yeah.
Where's the access for the trail that was proposed, and who has that trail, or who's proposing that bike trail?
It's Wellsville City, and it's,
What trail are we referring to? Is this Bonneville shoreline?
no,
Because there's a Bonneville shoreline that would go through somewhere there. It would probably be on the state's master website. And that would be, like, that would change it, right? And that might even be that we give them money for the easement, not necessarily even the open space, but for the easement, right?
yeah, so it's part of this red dash mountain bike trail system. And so you can see one of the big access points is actually here in Wellsville, and then it goes up and around and connects into these areas.
Does it connect on his property?
Yep, so this is his property right here, so it does.
Goes along the top of that ridge, if I
Yeah,
remember, they said.
there's this ridge right here, and so it goes right along the top of that.
And
I think
who,
there's an old service road that we talked about in our open, or in the site visit that goes along this area.
Down, where we came in, right, go down a little bit further. Right there, that, and then we're at Wise, it's the left hand as you go up. That one went up the hill, right there.
Yeah,
okay, so who owns the property to the north? Right there.
give my JS a second to catch up.
I've never seen this. This is on,
T&K Nelson Investment LLC. And I believe they own,
T&K Nelson. Is that Tony?
I'm not sure who it is, but I believe they own a bunch of property north of here.
Because Tony had submitted something, hadn't he?
Yeah, Tony Nilsson?
Yeah.
Yeah, he wants to put 20 houses on the road up to my place.
But didn't he have, I thought he was on that spreadsheet.
He might have been on the spreadsheet for the Gateway properties that we were looking at.
No, it was like in Mount Sterling or something.
Yeah, I can look.
But I thought it was south. I didn't think it was this. I mean.
I
so
border
let's just- I mean, I'm
Tony
just playing
Nilsson
this out.
and
You get some
Mark
contiguous
Thompson.
Trail access.
Yeah, Tony Nilsson.
He's on there.
Yeah, he is on our potentially interested property owners. I don't think I was the one who talked to him, but the note just says interested in knowing what he can do with his property.
All of a sudden, you got some contiguous.
Yeah.
And with mountain bike access.
Yep, makes it more compelling.
And the trail is proposed by Wellsville City?
It's a Wellsville master plan trail.
So who owns the piece west of Cooper's? Where the Y intersect, or the, I guess it's the first.
The high part of it?
Yeah, the high part, yeah. Because you're looking at those three pieces, that's a big chunk of the trail, right?
Yeah, let me look. Sorry, my mouse has disappeared on this page. There we go. Blue Mountain Cattle Company?
Yeah, they're over in Brigham. They own a ton of that. And I don't know that they would be, I don't know.
Okay, committee. What would you like to do? Sounds like we want to take these on one at a time. Okay.
Start
So-
with the Wellsville.
I'd be interested in a motion of recommendation.
I'll motion that we recommend the Wellsville property to move to the phase 2 round.
It's a recommendation to the county council. Okay.
Could we add a provision that, about the adjoining property, perhaps public access, that it needs to be, consider, there might be some opportunity there?
Do you think a way to do that would be, I guess, a condition that public access and additional lands be explored as part of round 2 or be
Yeah.
answered,
Adjoining,
proposed?
the property that the landowner currently leases be considered in that.
Yeah, like a note or something. Maybe, do you have how we worded the last one?
Yeah. Hang on, let me just pull it up real quick.
I think somehow landowners just have to know, like, if there's 4 big opportunities that came up and they couldn't put things together, us recommending a phase 1 doesn't reserve the funding. You know.
Yep.
Yeah.
Sorry, it's not in the file I thought it was in. Let me pull up a different file.
I guess I'm more referring that of Mount Sterling property than this one. So while he's doing that, Tony did reach out to the group on his property. And I didn't find that appealing. It becomes more appealing if you get a contiguous area.
I have no idea like what properties he was talking about. He owns quite a bit of property.
Yeah.
So this is a recommendation COSAC made about Elkhorn. Recommend the county council approve the Elkhorn Ranch Phase 2 open space application to move to the second application phase. Trail connectivity was not resolved within this application. The council should note that this property is an area of critical to trail connectivity according to the county trails master plan.
I think we could take that second sentence and just start off, the council should note that there's an opportunity, there might be an opportunity for contiguous properties that would increase the value of this,
Yeah.
Yeah.
something like that.
I like that.
to make them
Increase
aware.
Yeah.
Well, you already have the trail, existing trail, so it's gonna protect those vistas of those trails that are already existing.
Well, we're talking about the Wellsville, right? Not Mount.
Wellsville, yeah, yeah,
Talking about on the
Along the
city
highway.
property.
Oh, yeah, okay.
yeah.
About you, I think you were wording the third sentence, right?
The third sentence,
The
yeah.
council should note, and then that part. For the second sentence, should there be something to the effect of, public access was not resolved within this application, but the, project proponent is willing to discuss.
One thing is, any conservation easement on this ought not preclude a trail. Because if we don't word that in there, then it precludes a trail. I'm looking at this long-term. This would be a location potentially for a UDOT trail. I think they have a problem with that because of other houses along that side.
Yeah, the UDOT trail is gonna be on their property, it's. not gonna
Right,
be
but they
adjacent.
might need to acquire property in order to do it.
It's possible.
And if we lock this up, then it precludes it indefinitely.
Would we do that
Depending
this
on the
phase, or-
I would do it at this phase, just so that it's in there. Because otherwise we get down the road, and if it's not in there,
The train
then,
gets rolling, it's harder to
yeah,
stop it.
yeah.
So I just copied the first couple sentences from the Elkhorn Ranch. And so I recommend the county council approve the Cooper Wellsville open space application and move to the second application phase. Trail connectivity was not resolved within this application.
Wait,
And then
do we have a trails connectivity not resolved?
I,
We have public
I
access.
think we need something more
Yeah, it's not
general.
trails, I don't think that sentence applies here.
Public access was not resolved. Public access was not resolved within this application, but the landowner was willing to
Consider it.
consider. But yeah, we don't have a master trail plan that shows a trail coming through here.
Could we say that a conservation easement on this property should not preclude a trail? A future trail. And I don't know if we make an allusion to UDOT's,
I don't think we need to, but,
yeah.
yeah, copy that last sentence.
conservation easement should not preclude a future trail.
Go ahead and bring over that next sentence, Stephen, from the example.
Is that the case?
For what Claire had brought up, we want to say the council should note that the property to the north.
Oh,
There might be an opportunity.
okay, you just wanted to grab that first part. Got you.
Yeah,
Not the whole.
And do you wanna add something about being connected to the Wellsville city as well? So they connect all those pieces like it took us a little bit to connect?
I would.
Yeah. I don't think it hurts. I know Stephen's planning to supplement the staff report as well.
So the council should note that the property adjacent to the north may be considered in the future, which would add additional farmland and connection to Wellsville City open space and parks.
You'll need to unlock your iPad first.
Considers probably past tense, ED on the end. Is that what you're thinking?
You can split maybe into 2 words.
Yeah.
Yeah, it borders Wellsville City Parks right now, yeah.
Yeah, you can add a period after which would add additional farmland. You can add a period there and then take out the word and say this property is also connected to,
Yeah. Just pointing it out.
Okay.
How many acres is that total then? If the north piece went plus,
He said 50.
the 50?
That's probably about right. It would depend a little bit on what Wellsville City does with these roadways. So I couldn't just add up, I'd have to maybe outline the area to take into consideration. I couldn't just add up the parcels since you have those right-of-way dedications.
Be nice to know their plans, because putting roads through there is going to change the viability of agriculture, I would think.
No, completely.
and
Yeah.
they, obviously we're planning ahead and they gridded out this area, but if there's not homes, I can't imagine they need the roads because they're not gonna get access onto the highway with those local roads probably.
And they didn't take it all the way to the highway either.
Would a city ever cede that access to a conservation easement?
That's what I'm curious about. My follow-up question is figuring out what the city's interest, would they be adamantly opposed to something like this, or is this something that they might embrace as a?
I can reach out to the city manager and see what his thoughts are.
They could be completely on the flip side of this, and they want the
They
density
need
there.
or they need the connectivity or something to the utilities or the taxpayers, right?
Right.
In your sentence starting, the council should note, do you need both that?
Good catch.
Did we capture everything we want to say to the council? Eric, what do you think?
Yeah.
What do you think, Kendra? You okay?
The one thing I might propose is that I would say the property is contiguous to Wellsville City Open Space and Parks. Connected, just be connected across 5 blocks by a trail.
That's not spelled right.
Tiguous.
Hard to type with 10 people watching, isn't it?
Uous.
Sometimes.
OUS. There it is.
You want to change the tense of landowner was willing to consider it to current?
Yeah.
So was instead of, and change it to
Is.
is.
Right there.
Okay, anything else? I guess whenever you're comfortable, somebody can second it.
I'm okay with that.
Mr. Cooper, how do you feel about,
You what?
how do you feel about the statement?
I think it's okay. I'm just trying to get things you know, and then another deal is I lease another 105 acres on the west side of Wellsville, and it's going to be for sale here shortly. So this is my plan. So whatever, I just appreciate you guys listening to me. And pull up, it's Callister Farms on the west side of Wellsville.
But that's leased.
Yeah.
What happened to my GIS?
So. It's one of the owners of the Dry Lake area. That'd be a big potential.
Up in this area?
Callister's, yep.
That'd be a sardine size opportunity.
I don't know where the Callister
But the
property is.
needs were coming to our meetings early.
Sorry, I'm not sure where the property is. I'm not sure where the property is.
It's just, let's see, what you got there now?
Here's Wellsville City.
It's over by Murray's Dam. Have you got a picture of Murray's Dam on there?
I'm not sure I know where Murray's Dam is either.
It's probably about 900 south and 2nd west, somewhere right in there.
Okay.
Yeah, further south then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Somewhere in this area. Oh, there's Callister Farms right here.
Yeah, right there.
Okay.
Okay. Do I have a
Anyway,
second?
I just appreciate you guys and what you're doing. I'm just trying to figure or get stuff, whatever.
We appreciate your interest, Mr. Cooper.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Who wants to second it?
I'll second it.
Okay, so we have a motion to recommend the county council,
And we can see the verbiage up there.
the Cooper Wellsville project. All those in favor, say aye. Aye.
Any opposed?
Okay, so
That one's recommended. And then, would somebody like to take up or make a motion for the Mount Sterling property?
Would it help to continue it over and explore the trail access situation, or do we know everything we're going to know?
I'm not sure. It's just, according to the application, the property owner is allowed for hunters to go on the property with permission. But outside of that, there hasn't been any other indication. I mean, those mountain bike trails, though they could eventually go in there, they're still ways off. And so I don't know what new information I'd be able to uncover between now and next month.
I think we had a landowner that expressed interest. I don't know if he's been reached out to, but where there's the contiguousness of that would make a huge difference to me.
The purple
And
dash
he,
line.
and he reached out to us. Like, I think he deserves a call back, at least to understand what he was looking at.
The purple dash lines where it said, bike trail or whatever, is that just a plan, or is
Yeah,
there,
that's just a master plan.
there's
And
not
so
access there
There's
now?
currently no access, there's
Okay.
currently no trail. There's just a master plan trail at the moment.
Okay.
I mean, it's a way to resolve that and work with, and the city gets there could be an overall win all the way around with that. Especially where it's located on the property is in a fairly decent spot, so. I would think that in your conversation with the city, and maybe a follow-up with Tony Nelson, all that could be kind of, we could get a better picture of what an opportunity might entail.
It sounds like we might be able to learn a little bit more about if there's interest from surrounding property owners. Is that the idea?
Yeah, Blue Mountain, for example, has some dry lake area, which is interesting to us, and they're on that master plan. I mean, you could kind of do, like, all of a sudden it becomes much more interesting if we've got a rolled up package that benefits the city of Wellsville. A trail would benefit the whole valley. There's some visualness of that package as well. All of a sudden, when you kind of combine it, maybe some public access and limited public access, not the whole thing, but.
Might increase the scoring at this point.
Oh yeah, it could just fly. Yeah. And that's the time, I think, recommending to the council, they'd understand it more if it was, here's the package.
Overall picture. Yeah.
So would we maybe consider continuing this item for a time period?
Yes.
Just give ourselves an opportunity to maybe explore some of this additional information.
I've been wanting to reach out to Blue Mountain anyway, so I'll take that to understand what their interest might be in that.
How about if we say continue up to 90 days? We could
Extend
bring
it.
it back
Yeah.
anytime.
Yeah.
Is the term tabled on Robert's Rules of Order, just holding it?
Continue it is the language you'd like to
Yeah.
utilize.
Table is a little more of a death sentence, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
Continue it means we have to bring it back up.
Mm-hmm.
Stephen, will you ask the city a little bit about their plan?
Yeah, I'll follow up with them.
And if they have already any like if they have anything going on already on that program?
Yeah, I can follow up with Mount Sterling, and also follow up with the TK properties.
Yeah.
Great. So would somebody like to make a motion in that regard then?
I'll move that we continue this for up to 90 days and with the request for information that we've talked about.
Okay.
I second the motion.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second to continue the Cooper Mount Sterling property up to 90 days while we explore collecting some additional information in regards to Wellsville City's plans for both their open space along the Wellsville project, just know more about that, and the trail system associated with the Mount Sterling property in particular. And if there are other surrounding landowners who may be interested in participating, right? Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
Who seconded?
Eric did.
I did.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Mr. Cooper, so we recommended approval to the county council for your Wellsville property. And we're gonna continue the Mount Sterling property a little bit longer so we can gather some additional information. So we continued that one up to 90 days. All right. So, but we have our meetings once a month. And if we have the information before then, staff will let you know and we'll bring it back up.
Okay,
Okay?
thanks.
You bet.
What you're doing.
You bet. Thank you. Okay. Mr. Mickle's been sitting here patiently and
Or impatiently.
suffering through this with us. So thank you for that. And let's talk about the next item on our agenda, please, Stephen.
Okay. So this is a pre-application, and so there's not an official application has been filed. We're looking at, let's see, I got it all up. Let me open up my. We're looking at approximately 293 acres by 2 property owners, both within the same family though.
Oh, same family?
Yeah, there is a family relation between the 2 different entities. This is property that's located between Smithfield, you can see up here on the north, and Hyde Park is down here on the south. The property is generally located between 3rd East and 12th East in that area. And as you can see, a lot of the property is contiguous, but there are a few parcels that are isolated and maybe not contiguous between them. The purpose, I met with Mr. Mickle out there like a week and a half ago or something, and we just kind of drove around it. Most of you've been through this area and are familiar with the property itself, but the intent is to keep it open as farmland based on the pre-application. And then, like I said, Mr. Mickle's here to answer any questions that the committee might have before or why he's considering about filing an application.
Great. In the background, if you don't mind, could you pull up this area so we could see some of the surrounding conservation easements? Or nearby, I guess.
So, same family, what is the relationship?
Pardon?
What is the relationship between the 2 properties? Nephews?
Mm-hmm.
And you are, which are you? Which landowner are you?
J&M.
J&M, and your nephews are the Hard Rock LLC?
Right. And there's some other properties that my son owns that are not on this. If I could, if you're ready
Go
for me,
ahead.
I'd like to take the pointer.
Come on up.
Let me give you just a little background of where I'm coming from. 30 years ago, it was in November of 94. Well, it was actually September and October. An ag preservation committee was formed in Cache Valley. Evan Olson, Clark Israelson were a few of the founding members. I was head of that committee, and we worked for several years. Probably, all told, I have about 15 years of working on this subject. As we formed our committee, we immediately recognized that we had to have a funding mechanism. So, along with Evan was in the legislative body, so we started to work with the State Commissioner of Agriculture. Governor Leavitt formed a land use committee, which I served on for a year, looking at the issue of farmland preservation in the state. Now, what we were trying to do is accomplish what happened with the open space bond that passed here in the county. In order to protect farmland, you have to have an initial funding mechanism, which you now have. At the time we were working on this, the federal government developed a fund where they put in $50 million a year for farmland preservation. I kept telling, along with Evan, we kept telling the legislative body, we can't touch that money that you're paying because we don't have a match. Well, the fund is still there. There's a young lady who worked for NRCS here in the county who is now working in the federal building in Salt Lake for NRCS, and she is running that program to distribute those funds. So that's a funding source that's available. Along with, at the time we were working with Governor Leavitt, with Evan and the legislative body, they did come up with what they called the McAllister Fund. I talked with Craig Butters recently, who is now the Commissioner of Agriculture, and there's an ongoing $1 million a year in that fund. Now, what I would like to propose to you today is, do you have a pointer I can?
Unfortunately, I don't think my pointer's going to show up on the screen.
Well, maybe, do you have a long stick? I could go over there and point.
I don't think I have a long stick either. Say, we can maybe pull up a map and I can maybe point out a couple properties.
Yeah, if you use the mouse, that would work.
The other map you had was better for me to, for him to look at. You had a pointer early. Does it not work on the?
I just have my mouse I can use.
Could we give him the mouse?
I just have my laptop.
Oh, it's on your laptop,
Okay.
sorry, I didn't realize.
This could be dangerous.
Yeah,
Okay. Let's do this. Okay, you go, hold your mouse, come back to the bottom of the screen. Okay, stop on, go move just across those trees. Okay, my brother, his family owns that piece that your pointer's on. There's a piece 2 acres across the street, and then there's another 5 or 6 acres back towards Hyde Park. That just, I need a pointer. What I'm saying is what's outlined here is not what we envisioned for the whole project. There are other landowners. This is initial check the temperature in the county as to what your interests are. Prior to meeting with you, I met with the mayors of Hyde Park and Smithfield to get their input because they're critical to make something like this happen, and we need to have them on board. Neither one of them, Smithfield's mayor was very supportive of the project. Hyde Park didn't have a problem with it. The only thing Hyde Park is interested in is it doesn't interfere with their highway property that they can develop strip malls on. And the thing that you need to keep in mind, how many of you like LA? I didn't see any hands go up. You're developing LA in Cache County. As we formed this committee 30 years ago, we had a meeting with all of the mayors in the county. I told them at that time, you can get into Cache County, you can get into Logan still, but you can't get through. We have State Street between Logan and Smithfield. So had we got the program off the ground 30 years ago, we could have protected the corridor between Logan and Wellsville, which is rapidly becoming another State Street. So the goal here is a block of property in agriculture that is contiguous, that has farmers who are capitalizing the business to stay in the business and would like to see it stay that way. There are other, if I had a pointer, there is property above that my son owns that would like to be in the program. There's property to the south of us that I want to hear what the committee thinks, and if there's an interest, then we'll bring them to the table. I've only talked to one of them, and he has an interest because he wants to see it open, but he has other brothers and sisters that own the 10 acres, and they want out. So this is a way to help get them out. I have nephews that want to retire, and they want out of the business. If they develop, if they break that contiguous thing we have there, then we lose the whole pie. So the goal is to keep it contiguous. There's other sources of funding that I think we ought to approach, not only the county, the federal funds, the McAllister, but organizations such as Nature Conservancy sometimes get interested in this project. I don't know whether you're aware of, is it Wasatch County where Heber Camas is? Is that Wasatch?
yes.
Okay.
Wow.
This was on the news several months ago. there's a family up there that has 700 or 800 acres in the middle of that Camas area. They've gone out of business. The county is concerned that it's falling into the hands of development, and so they're doing something up there to try and protect that area. So this is an opportunity for Cache County to protect a beautiful area between two cities that still has viability to remain in agriculture. So with that said, I would just like to leave it in your hands. You can have your discussion without me here if you have any questions before I leave, but I'd like you to discuss it. And I really would make a suggestion that you take yourself on a field trip on these projects rather than looking at them on a map. You need to go out and drive them, and maybe in some cases walk them, so you get a seat of your pants feel for what you're talking about. To give you an example, 30 years ago, our committee would not have looked at a project between Hyde Park and Logan. North Logan at the time had a lot of open space in it, but there were no capitalizing entities to run that open space. So we would not have considered a project in those areas, and I would make that recommendation to you that you look at that cautiously. We have a piece of property there that already has a conservation easement. At the same time, the state had some money, and we had 10 acres, the neighbor had 5. By putting a conservation on the 10, we were able to buy his 5. Can you take your pointer and point? Okay, right there. Okay, that 15 acres has a conservation easement on it already. Evan Olson has property out where he lived that he put an easement on at a similar time as we did this. Any questions?
Brent, you mentioned your nephew. Is that the Hard Rock? Is that
Yeah.
the one in?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Is he totally on board with this?
Yes, they are. The one of them wants to get out. I communicate more with the brother and let him talk to his other brother, but they are interested. The one is interested in staying in the business. The one's health is poor enough that he would like to retire and get out of it. So what I'm proposing is someone like my nephew that needs to have his portion retired, you would look at doing the easement on his property first. But knowing that there's an overall commitment for the future, this is a long-term project. This is not going to happen in a year or two. We're looking at years down the road to take different entities out at the time it needs to happen. But it would take an overall commitment that, yes, we are going to do this over time. Any other questions?
The other brother and that do they have adjoining property that could all be contiguous?
Yes. My brother owns, let's see, he owns about 25 acres in that is not outlined, that should be, and that's right contiguous. The only piece that we do not own, and I won't talk to the landowner until I hear back from you if there's an interest, and that's, can you put your pointer right, okay, come west or to the left? Well, right there, that piece right there, all the south end of it, right there, my brother owns. Go back the other way, right there, there's about 12 acres that a neighbor owns. But I think the family would be very open to this because they own some other property to the south of this that when I hear from you and there's an interest, then we'll bring them in and they can express their interest as to what they'd like to see happen.
Who owns the feed lot?
That's my nephews. They own part of the feedlot. We own the south end of the feedlot.
But that's not in this wrap?
Well, it should be.
Okay.
It's in, I mean, part of it you wouldn't consider, but there is part of it where my son has vineyard area and he's putting more vineyard area.
Okay, so
And,
he's Naomi.
yeah. mhm.
That's who? Your nephew?
Yeah, well, my son, yeah, we're Mount Naomi Forums, yes, yeah.
Okay.
And then
My daughter just got married there this weekend, so.
Oh, okay.
it's also the
Oh,
site
good.
of the first conservation easement in the valley.
I can't hear you.
It's also the site of the first conservation easement in the valley, right?
Yes,
Mick Barnes did.
yes.
So that's the Mickelderry that just sold.
Well, it was under, my brother and I owned the property at the time.
Yeah. So Robert and Glenn just sold the dairy. We lost the milking head in the valley. How many were they milking? 800?
5 to 6.
We went to Utah County, so we lost milking head. We were the number one milking, and we lost to Millard.
To Millard. Okay.
So
Other questions for Mr. Mickle?
how many beef cows do you have there now? Or how many beef head does Robert and Glenn have?
It varies. They're feeding for some people right now. They're down to a few hundred head. This winter they were up to 1,000, so it comes and goes.
So you've mentioned a couple of times, what's our interest? And, I mean, typically we would ask you to submit a phase 1 application. And then we would dig into it a little bit more. And our phase 1 application, we do include a site visit. So we visited all the properties that we discuss.
Okay.
When they come up. So we'll definitely want to do that. But what are you looking for from us in terms of a level of interest? I mean, I'm interested, but I know I would probably be more interested if I knew all of the parcels or properties that may be
I think when,
Part of a project like this?
sorry, if I may.
Yeah.
When we met a week and a half ago, I recommended, as he was considering whether or not, as we talked about filing an application, our conversation went to, well, what's the next steps? Is there any way that we could maybe do a discussion about the item to see, gauge? I was like, well, we have a pre-application, and we could potentially get some feedback on the priorities or things that the committee might find important in any application that was being brought in to this area, and maybe just generally, because I think part of the issue is there's a lot of property owners out there, and how much you would want to reach out to them to get a joint application going, or if you'd rather see maybe just get the immediate property owners that we've discussed today to sign on and file an application.
So, speaking for myself, I mean, what's interesting about this project is, there is a lot of land we're talking about here. It sounds like there's a potential for even more. There's a number of canals that go through this area. There's a lot of interest in trails along canals through the area, and so potential for public access would be available. And would make this a compelling project as well. So the scale, the amount of farmland being preserved is definitely intriguing. I wish it was at the mouth of Wellsville Canyon. It would be extremely intriguing for us.
Yeah.
But nonetheless, you're absolutely right in that, this is an area where we can keep some separation between some growing communities, and that has significant value.
Well, as I met with the two mayors, we had people from the county there. 1000 East runs between the two communities. That road is going to be redone. I suggested to the county that in the redo process that they create a bike walking path along it, because there's a tremendous amount of people who walk and ride bicycles on that road, and it's a death trap for them right now. So there is a trail through there, but it needs improving. The same with the road that comes out from Skyview. It's 250 East in Smithfield. the same thing needs to happen there because they want to walk the loop. They like, just a ton of people walk that loop because they want to be out in the fresh air, walk their dog in that area. And so those two roads, I think, are planned for improvement, and I think we'd miss the boat if we do not put a walking, biking access along both of them.
I'll just weigh in along with Chris. I think the contiguousness of it, it almost sounds like what you're looking to do is put conservation easements, almost use those to kind of keep making it contiguous like you did this last piece.
Yeah, if my nephews, if they want to get out, it would be used to help take them out, so on.
And end up with a,
And the few other landowners, like the one that his nephew, or his brother's family members want to get out, and if he wants to, that would be enabling to help that.
yeah, and I do think you have two communities that have good access to it, that can have that experience of being out of town and in rural setting. So I think it's interesting to see what you could what you could put together.
Okay, well, I would like you to discuss it, as your committee without me here. And if you feel like it's something you want to move ahead with, then I would like to bring the other landowners, talk to them, tell them what we're doing, and they can come in and express their desires. Then we can start the paperwork. I would like to follow that trail.
I think logistically on a phase one application, we'd need the parcel described. So it's kind of chicken and egg, who's going to go first here? We're almost talking about a open space master plan for the area.
Yeah, boom, 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 boom. Yeah, and I mean, he did that with this, where he expanded it with the conservation easement.
Mm-hmm.
Just as a note, we probably need to wrap up in about 5 minutes.
Okay. Okay, any other questions for Mr. Mickle? Kendra? Claire?
Oh, thank you. I appreciate your time.
Thank you, Mr. Mickle.
Thank you.
We appreciate your interest. Okay,
Do we put this on a future agenda? Do we keep it in the back of our mind?
I'll leave you. Thank you.
Thank you.
thank you.
Just a thought, it does, he's talking about that loop and that type of thing. That's an important part of what we experience here in Cache Valley, is being able to move from our community to agricultural area and have that experience. How you blend that becomes an important thing for Smithfield and Hyde Park in this whole mix. You talked about something along the canals, for example. I mean, that's all part of it. It becomes a pretty interesting. If you can't experience it, it's kind of hard for us to, as a county, put a lot to it. But this is a part I biked through. I don't know, road bike through it, and I'm a Logan citizen, not even in these two communities here.
Yeah, I like it as a project.
Is there any direct feedback you'd want me to reach out to give him, or do we want to talk about it again next month? Or?
I don't know, what do you folks think?
I would like to see the actual application, like which parcels are included and which landowners are on board. And I know he wants us to express an interest first, but I don't think we can. Like I think that's the reverse order.
Can we encourage him? There's probably something here.
I think we can say, yes, of course we're interested in, as much as we're interested in all open space in Cache Valley. However, we can't make any promises about anything until we see the actual application and who's on board. And not just that you're going to talk to these landowners, but are they actually willing to be part of it?
Well, and some of this is already an easement, it'd be nice to see
Yeah.
which ones are in the easement and then focus on those.
You've got that on the.
Yeah, I have that up already.
Yeah.
So those are an easement.
There's also something by the highway, isn't there?
Something up here, and then might be
Oh,
something.
yeah. Should be something on the highway a little bit south. I thought.
Coming up.
Something out in this direction.
Oh, there.
Yeah. This is a highway though, so that's pretty far off of it.
I think a contiguous set there becomes pretty interesting.
So it's one block off the, no, it's a couple of blocks, okay.
Again, I'm wondering who holds this little easement, like,
It's a small one.
I think that was,
I can look that up and see who holds it.
can you? I mean, I just tried, it's the part of, I'm just not understanding yet.
Yeah, I can just look at the parcel
I
numbers
think
and
it's
see what's
Department of
recorded.
Ag.
Department of
I'm
Ag?
pretty sure it's Department of Ag.
So, yeah, that's interesting.
The state would have helped funded that.
It was funded in the early 2000s when I was on the Ag Advisory Board, which was the board or the committee that John was a part of. His project and Evan Olson's project and Gibbons' project and John White's project, they all came through around the same time, got funded. We were doing a ton of conservation easements in Cache County because we had interested landowners.
I would think this one would be in the perfect fit for the Lorraine McAllister Fund. The scope of it, the size of it. Cache County's part might be part of that, but maybe a smaller part to fit Cache County's unique goals and interests.
Yep.
Yeah.
Maybe depending on the trails and that McAllister's not interested in, but.
And
And
then,
then just the size of it, I imagine the cost of it's not going to be cheap either.
I mean, he did say he's interested in phasing it. That would be another question, like what is he most interested in having first considered, second considered, third considered, not so much on us to decide, but which ones is he interested in pursuing?
I think that's a little bit based on who's wanting out
Oh, yeah,
when and stuff,
yeah.
right?
Absolutely.
So he's gotta come up with the master plan.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
That also presumes that he,
there's the assumption there that there's not enough money to do the whole thing at once, right? That it would need to be in phases. I mean, if it's, this is all, I'm sure, prime farm ground. I mean, it's gonna look like a really good project, I think, to some of the federal funding.
Yeah.
If you look at just the J&M holdings, they're largely not contiguous by themselves, so maybe it almost has to start with the Hard Rock, the ones in white. And if that's part of it, then it sounds like J&M would want to go in as well, but.
See, and there's a center pivot on the one that says 28 and 38. That's a center pivot that swings almost the whole, you can almost see the circle there.
oh yeah.
So, yeah, there's a center pivot on those two pieces right now.
Oh,
I used to live just north of here. So
So-
I'm really familiar with the Milky Way,
So,
is what was dubbed.
probably need to.
Okay.
so it's a half moon.
It's a half moon, yep,
Okay.
half circle right there on his pivot.
And it actually spans Hard Rock and J&M property.
Yeah.
Where is that?
Right here, that's a pivot right there.
Oh, okay, I see it. It's large.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's very large. It used to draw off of, see, when the dairy was running, they'd go down into the sewer lagoon and then pump out of the sewer lagoon and then swing that half circle.
I think the feedback from the committee can be, we're very interested. We would like to know, we'd like to see the big picture and how many properties do they think they may be able to bring in on this? That's what makes it.
Yeah, the big picture and the little picture, like step by step,
What's
you
the
know,
first
was the first
phase?
step.
Yeah. Is there a standalone first step if the
Right,
other
then we'd
never
be okay
happens?
with, uh-huh, yep,
Yeah.
yep.
Okay. Anything else, committee? So we can wrap this up? Okay, without objection, we'll stand adjourned.